Welcome to episode 41 of the Rescued by Dragons fantasy fiction podcast, Tales of the Brunch Club. My name is Brian Messmer, and I am not only your storyteller, but the dungeon master behind the homebrew Dungeons & Dragons campaign this adventure is based on. Please join me as I tell the tale of how my players and the dice ruined and improved my perfectly laid plans. But first, a quick recap. In episode 40, the Brunch Club intercepted Captain Santiago and the last two surviving pirates as they fled from a failed assault on the Knoll encampment. The group learned from the battered pirates that they managed to kill a few Knolls before the Flint smashed their cannon and annihilated the rest of their crewmates. When the pirates insisted on continuing toward town, Jory revealed who he was and chased Santiago down. The Brunch Club killed the remaining pirates. Drusilla took a single sending stone off Santiago's body. They dragged the bodies off the trail into the woods, hoping hungry owl bears would consume the corpses. 3 animated scarecrows emerged from the trees and began dragging the bodies away. The Brunch Club destroyed them and took one of their burlap heads, hoping it would help Saberhagen scry on whoever sent them. In his scrying bowl, Saberhagen saw the image of Rajat giving orders to the Flint in front of a 20-strong war band of Knolls. "Burn it to the ground," was his final command before he transformed into an elk and galloped away. Chapter 41: Pirates and Portals. Saberhagen's inner sanctum was filled with the type of anxious quiet that precedes a powerful storm. Each of the room's occupants silently contemplated the news the wizard had given them. Drusilla was the first to speak. "We should evacuate the town." "How?" Alora asked. "We'd leave the townsfolk exposed on the road. They'd be easy targets." "Can we teleport them to the library?" Salas asked Saberhagen. The cat shook his head. "No. Without a library card, they'd be disintegrated the moment they stepped out of the teleportation circle." "Wow, I don't even want to know what their late fees are like," muttered Diesa. "I could," continued Saberhagen, "transport them 1,000 miles away to a remote desert location, but I don't think they'd like that since I've been using it as a litter box for quite a few years." "Wait a second," Salas said, squinting at Saberhagen, thinking about their first time in his inner sanctum. Is that where you sent the dead Knoll we interrogated after the first Wheaton attack?" The cat nodded, and Diesa chuckled. "Why don't we send a call for aid to Calavar and Solania?" Salas asked. "Would it get to them in time, and would they even answer it?" Joy wondered, and looked towards Saberhagen for his opinion. The cat let out a sigh of resignation. "Elnor has little regard for Wheaton, and I would never assume I know the inner workings of the mind of a dragon." "We know they're coming this time. We could always fight," Drusilla said. The group looked at her and weighed their odds against 20 Knolls and a Flint, even if they had Wheaton's able-bodied citizens fighting alongside them. "The Rod's curse does have cannons," Alora said, as a hint of optimism crept into her voice. "That would even the odds." "Hell yes," Diesa exclaimed. "I vote for killing the rest of the pirates and taking their cannons." Joy began cautiously. "As far as the town knows, that's just a ship in port. If we go kill them and steal the cannons, we'd probably be arrested for murder." The rest of the party considered Jory's point, as well as their other ideas, and formulated a plan. Saberhagen would teleport Salas to the library, where she would try to get a message to Solania and Calavar. The rest of the Brunch Club would ask Mayor Gladstone for permission to commandeer the cannons. On their way to the mayor's, they would send carrier pigeons to Elnor, just in case Salas's message didn't get where it needed to go. "All right, let's do this," Salas said eagerly as she stepped into the center of the teleportation circle in Saberhagen's inner sanctum. When the remaining members of the group descended the stairs into the Sunspot's shopping area, Drusilla noticed a gleaming round shield. It had a pristine black finish with delicate silver filigree along the outer rim. "A shield with a minor protection enchantment," Saberhagen told her. "If this isn't a time for an upgrade, I don't know what is," Drusilla said as she counted out the hefty amount of gold for the bulwark. They stocked up on healing potions as well, in preparation for the impending battle. "You gonna fight with us again?" Alora asked Saberhagen on their way out. "I don't like the odds," the wizard said unapologetically before jumping the steps back up to his inner sanctum. "I'll be in the aforementioned desert waiting this one out." The mayor listened to the Brunch Club's warning, as well as their plan and request to board the pirate ship. He looked exasperated and worried, but kept a pragmatic demeanor. He dashed off a quick note on parchment and handed it to an aide. The aide had a worried look on his face and left the office with haste. I'll order all able-bodied citizens old enough to lift a sword to get ready to defend their home. All others will begin evacuating immediately, Mayor Gladstone told them decisively. I've just sent orders to the captain of the guard to commandeer the cannons from the Rod's Curse, and let him know you'll be meeting him at the docks right away to offer your assistance. They thanked the mayor and hurried to meet the captain at the docks. After a flash of light, Salis found herself standing in the Crystal Spire Library. She nervously looked at her hand and was relieved to see the library's sigil glowing beneath the skin of her palm. Reassured she would not disintegrate, she stepped confidently out of the teleportation circle. She looked down each of the long rows of shelves that spread out around her in a concentric circle, with her at its hub. Far down one row, she saw what looked like an elderly wizard leafing through a stack of books. He had several more books stacked by his feet. 2 open books floated next to him at waist level. "Excuse me," Salis called out as she rushed up to him. "I need to get a message to Solania and Calavar. It's very important. Can you help me?" The wizard looked at her, but seemed to answer a completely different question. "If you don't get the incantation right, you will not be able to control the demon once you summon it," he told her sternly. That makes sense," Salis replied. "But I don't need to summon a demon. I need to get a note to Solania and Calavar." "Summoning spells are tricky," the wizened librarian insisted. "You must get the incantation exactly right." Salis let out an exasperated sigh and left the wizard to his books in search of a more helpful, less insane librarian. She saw a figure in the distance down another long row, placing books carefully on the shelves. As she approached, she realized he was smaller than the other librarians. Her size, in fact. A sense of hope replaced her frustration when she saw this librarian was a young gnome. "Can you help me?" she asked. The gnome turned, his eyes opened wide, and his head jerked slightly in a startled movement. "What?" asked Salis, feeling suddenly self-conscious. "Oh, sorry," the librarian said. Embarrassment made his cheeks flushed. "We don't get many people in here like you." "Gnomes?" Salis asked. Young gnomes," he smiled. "Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Devin." He held out his hand. Salis took it and smiled back. "I'm Salis. And what can I help you with?" Devin asked, after an awkward moment of silence. Salis jerked her hand away, realizing she'd forgotten to end their handshake. "I need to get a message to Solania or Calavar right away." Devin listened to her story. The happy expression on his face gave way to one of serious attention. He wrote down everything she told him and promised he would do his best to get the message where it needed to go. "Wait!" Salis called to him right after they started hurrying in opposite directions. "What do you know about wild magic?" Devin smiled. "Quite a lot, and what I don't know I can find in here." He held his hands out, indicating the volumes of information in the library. "If I make it back, would you teach me about it?" Salis asked. Devin smiled hopefully. "It would be my honor." Salis smiled and hurried to the teleportation circle. The Brunch Club stopped at Druin's blacksmith shop to warn him about the upcoming attack, and to request as many pounds of grape shot he could make for the cannons. Salis caught up to them on their way to the docks to meet the captain of the guard. 3 guards were waiting for them. Alora, Drusilla, and Salis recognized the captain as Tahard, the commander of the town watch in Bowmore. He introduced the 2 soldiers with him as Damien and Jollop. Drusilla introduced Jory and Diesa to Tahard and asked him, "What brings you to Wheaton?" He turned and looked toward the west as if hoping to see across a great distance. "Balmore's been abandoned," he told them. "The bad dreams started coming back about a month after you left, and with the specter of the bog hag lurking nearby, and no one willing to hunt it, the people eventually just started to leave." "I told Vorjan we should have gone back into the bog," Alora said. Drusilla and Salis didn't bother to acknowledge that that wasn't exactly how their exit from Bowmore went down. "What about Anne and Cooper and Ulrich and Rafe Brenton?" asked Drusilla. Tahard let out a long, sad sigh. "Anne took her own life soon after her daughter's, I don't know what to call it, death." possession, transformation. Anyway, Cooper left town shortly after that. Brenton stayed behind until everyone got out safely, and as far as I know, Ulrich is still there. He said he'd put down too many roots to leave. I'm sorry to hear that, Drusilla said softly. Her voice then grew more cheerful. But I'm glad we have you here with us now. Let us get this party started, Laura said as she placed her phoenix arrow on her bow. The 8 of them approached the Rod's Curse. A number of pirates were buzzing about on deck, looking like they were moving with haste. When they reached the gangway, Captain Tahard announced to the pirates on deck that the cannons were to be commandeered for the defense of Wheaton per order of the mayor. Ilya, the first mate, peered down at them. "Fuck off," she snarled, and kicked the gangway off her ship, sending it crashing into the dock. A couple of sails dropped, and the Rod's Curse began drifting away. Damien tried to leap the short distance to the ship, but fell short. He grabbed onto the gunwale and started pulling himself up. Drusilla, remembering the effectiveness of her plant growth spell in their greenhouse, cast it on the seaweed beneath the ship in hopes of slowing it down. Salus attempted to burn the sails with the firebolt, but it merely shot through the sail, leaving only a small hole with smoldering edges, doing little to slow the ship. As Diesa and Alora fired arrows, Jory sprinted along the dock and made his own attempt to jump onto the Rod's Curse. He also fell short, but was able to grab onto Damien's legs before plunging into the ocean. Damien maintained his grip on the side of the ship. "Little halfling shit," they heard an angry woman's voice say above them. They looked up at Ilya, peering over the side, recognition in her face as she stared at Jory. She kicked Damien in his face, knocking them both into the frigid ocean. Salus ran along the dock, trying to keep up with the ship. A door opened upwards from the side of the hull. The pirates slid a cannon through the port and fired. The cannonball didn't hit Salus, but the immense concussion of the close blast knocked her unconscious. Captain Tahard growled with frustration. He sprinted along the dock and successfully leapt aboard the deck of the Rod's Curse. Ilya whirled around to face him. 2 crewmen shot crossbows at the dock. Ilya screamed at them. "Ignore them! Get the rest of the sails up!" she commanded as she parried a sword thrust from Tahard. After the crossbow bolt stuck in the deck at his feet, Jollop shouted, "I'll get back up!" and ran toward town. Drusilla hurried to Salus's side and revived her with a healing spell. The cleric then summoned a spectral raven that appeared on the ship's deck and began attacking Ilya. At the base of the ship, Damien's chainmail was pulling him under the water. With Jory's help, they made it to a ladder on a nearby piling. Exhausted, Damien told Jory to go ahead without him. The halfling scurried up the ladder to rejoin the fight. With the sails now fully up and the Rod's Curse ready to clear the dock completely, Tahard found himself flanked by Ilya and another pirate. He inflicted deep, cutting blows on Ilya, but was tiring and had taken some serious cuts himself. As he raised his arm for another attack, he heard Alora shout out, "Don't be a hero, Tahard!" "You know what?" he shouted back. "Good idea." He leapt from the ship and landed safely on the dock before the ship sailed past. Salus, newly healed and very angry, cast a lightning bolt into the smoking cannon at the rear of the ship. She couldn't tell if the cannon was still usable, but the loud, agonizing screams of the 2 gunners from below decks filled her with a feeling of vengeful satisfaction. A small fire as Alora's phoenix arrow and Salus's firebolt had started and the ship's sails began to grow larger and hotter as the ship picked up speed. Despite the burning sails, the ship was now nearly out of reach. Most of the crew had taken cover below the gunwales, leaving only the helmsman for Alora to target. "No, they're getting away!" Jory shouted, panic and frustration rising in his voice. "What do we do?" "Shit, shit, shit, shit," Salus muttered to herself, weighing her options. "Jory!" the sorceress suddenly shouted. I can portal us onto the ship." "Just us?" Jory asked. "Yes! You're the only one small enough I can take with me, but you have to be willing." Jory looked back and forth between the speeding ship and the tougher members of the group they'd be leaving behind. He took a large swig of mead from his wineskin and answered, "Yes, I'm willing," and made his way as quickly as he could into the sorceress's arms. Salus opened a portal in front of them and pulled Jory through behind her. In an instant, they found themselves on the deck of the pirate ship. Their appearance startled the crew. Before they could charge the diminutive intruders, they were startled again by an agonizing scream. Everyone on deck saw the horrible sight of a spectral black raven pluck Ilya's eyes from her socket as she crumpled to the deck, too far gone to save. Seeing the horror on his former crewmates' faces, Jory stepped forward and said, Santiago's dead. Ilya's dead. You'll never find the treasure without them. You might as well give up. Fuck you, drunkling, the pirate at the helm shouted back. Before the others could attack, they were again startled by 2 hatches being flung open. 2 burned, smoking, angry pirates crawled up from below decks and charged at Jory. Jory was able to hold his own while Salas fired a barrage of magic missiles at the other pirates. They managed to wound a few, but they were still outnumbered, and the remaining crew began to close in around them. Back on the dock, Drusilla healed Captain Tahard. I think they're slowing down, said Allura as she took another shot at the helmsman, even though he was barely visible. Drusilla noticed a fast-looking, 20-foot-long sailing skiff on the other side of the dock. Can we commandeer that? Yeah, said Tahard. Great. Can you sail? No, Tahard grunted, shaking his head and grimacing from his wounds. Jollop arrived back at the dock with 5 more town guards. Can any of you sail? Drusilla shouted as they approached. After one of them raised their hand, they all piled into the skiff, pushing it away from the dock, and chased after the rod's curse, hoping Salas and Jory could stay alive for just a few more minutes. Our tale will continue in episode 42. Episode 41 was written by Dominic White, Bethany Powers, and myself, Brian Messmer. The audio recording of our D&D game session that inspired this episode will be available on our podcast channel this Thursday under the name Brunch Club Live. Additional role-playing contributions to the story by Bethany Powers, who played Diesa, J.P. Black, who played Drusilla, Liz Raychard, who plays Allura, Anna Flemke, who plays Salas, and Dominic White, who plays Jory. If you enjoyed this podcast, please help us out by sharing it with your friends and rating and reviewing us on your favorite podcast platform. We really appreciate it. More information about Rescued by Dragons and ways to support and follow us can be found at rescuedbydragons.com. Thank you for listening, and please join me next week to see what my players' choices and the roll of the dice have in store.
What do you want to do, Jory? You have
Jump.
to be willing.
Well, here's the problem. Here's the problem. It's their turn once we jump. Oh, no, it's not.
No.
They
It's
just moved. It's your turn.
But there's
Salas'
not
turn.
anything I can do. It's my turn after Salas. There's not really anything
Put
I can
us...
do. Take me.
You can't. Too big.
Yeah, it should be,
Your size is smaller.
right.
I do have my stabby bird that's still there.
Can you put us... Yeah, teleport us over there and put us somewhere, like... where you're out of range, and then I can run up.
Is it the helm? I don't know how should.
Helm's back. Helm's back
okay,
here.
the bow.
The bow.
Fuck.
Well, you could put us
Bow
right...
forward, helm
You could put us right there, here on this side of the sail.
Yeah, wherever I would assume I could, because I have to be able to visualize where we're going.
You've seen the ship.
Right. So, I just, state, distance, and direction, all that.
She is
Grab
in
you.
the aft stateroom? Is
No,
where
no,
Ilya
she's-
is?
she's
Or
still outside.
She
She's
is
right in
still
front of it.
outside.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, put us right here.
But not blocked by the mast.
Right. So right here. Or right here, either way.
Where?
Either side of the mast.
Either right here or right here.
Okay, so I'm gonna visualize that area. I'm gonna grab Jory and we're gonna fucking do this.
Okay, so Jory, the Salas says, "Are you willing? You have to be willing." And you're like,
Let's do it, baby!
Put us right next to
Look,
the...
look, 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 look! The alcohol makes the trip smoother.
And as she says that, she grabs you, and a doorway kind of rips open next to her and kind of engulfs them as they're both just gone. And you see a similar doorway rip open over here on the ship. Yeah. Salas, I'll let you pick who's in what square, but this was the square you appeared in, so you can put Jory in one of your surrounding.
He could be right next to me there.
Okay, so that was your action?